Right, well, it's been moving around a bit, as you'd expect. We're just really going to look at the S&P today. I guess as a proxy for everything else going on. I do have to laugh. I do watch a few videos out there. Some of them for shits and giggles, some of them for, because they're genuinely good. One of them was funny. His kid made a comment. There aren't many times when you look back thinking I was there and I was in trading and investing when, this Ukraine thing happened, right? It's like, right, okay. I think the ones that I've traded and invested in that I remember, like there's the Asian financial crisis in 1997. I was in Indonesia working in a joint venture business there and supporting business in Malaysia. There was like back in 1991, there was like when the Bank of South Australia and the State Bank of Victoria, they collapsed. But before that, I think in 1990, there was the estate mortgage fund collapse. I remember that. There was a 97 crash. I remember that. Option traders locking themselves in the bathroom so they didn't have to close out positions. Oh, there was a surprise Fed rate cut in 2001, January. I remember that. I was running an interest rate options book. September 11th, I do remember that. That's also when I was trading interest rate options book. I traded 36 hours straight. The markets, they really were. That was volatile. This is nothing, right? Compared to that. I remember WorldCom 2002, Enron. That's 2001. The dot-com crisis 2001. Remember those times? I was trading them. Oh, Bernie Madoff. His collapse, his Ponzi collapse. That was GFC 2008. Around about then, I was in Miami when that happened. Of course, remember the GFC. We had a big repo book, so a lot of banks were pulling their funding lines, and it was a real scramble to get those funding lines done. COVID 2020, remember that. The 2018, when rates moved and the market just dropped 20% over the course of a few months, that was an interesting one. Iraq 1990, remember that. And Iraq number 2, 2003. Remember in the central bank when they were doing a lot of gold sales during the 1990s, there was a lot of volatility in gold. And that really depressed the price. There was a 2004 options scandal for National Australia Bank. 93, there was like this margin call disaster, Metal Galileo shaft. And soon after that, 18 months, 2 years, there was the Bearing collapse because of Nick Leeson. They're the ones I can remember off the top of my head. So if you're talking to someone saying you'll never see anything like this before, there's about 20 of these ones. And they happen a lot more than you think. And if you think this is the one that you're really going to remember, you haven't been around long enough, right? There's been plenty of these. If you're following guys and this is like their highlight of market volatility, they obviously haven't been around enough in either this market or other markets. So that's my opening rant and rave. But that's my experience, right? Let me know if you find anyone else that's been through all of those. I've looked, I can't find them. I'm not saying like I'm a genius, right? But these things, they are officially for education. People do pay attention to your views on the markets. I share my positions. It's a trading diary for me. And I'm a firm believer in you want to work out where your information is coming from so you can just bullshit check, man, because it's very easy to bullshit in these markets because a lot of people don't know them. It's very easy to bullshit. Don't listen to bullshitters. Check them out. Look me up on LinkedIn if you want to see my CV. Right, so this is the first impressions. This is the way I normally kind of start, the week. I like these area charts. They're a bit weird, but they just clearly kind of divide the market into two. What hasn't happened, right, and what has happened. That's essentially it, right? The future, history. That's kind of it, I guess, one way of putting it. So I guess the thing that I see here really is this is quite a channel going down. Obviously, state the obvious. I'm seeing like a big line through here, which has provided some temporary, support from there, which it has certainly broken. And I guess that was interesting. Some people we're going to see that as a false break, and I guess that's why it's rallied. Others, it's like, mate, well, that was not a false break. It's just this is just a fool's rally. I see this in here. there's an increasingly likely space for it to fill. See that, where it's just totally and utterly vertical in there. Always bothered me. And again, it's a key psychological level, 4,000. Just went straight through, never really looked back. Had a look back here, got close. It's still 1% away, right? I guess you could say in that, given it's close enough, given the volatility around there. But it is interesting. That level will be, to me, that is the next key level. You can see there wasn't a hell of a lot of work done. That was the last time there was a fair bit of work done, apart from around here. And that was obviously that election time around September, October, November last year. Is that right? No, that's another one. Who was it? This is the other level. That was the bigger one that I've got my eye on. This one was where the really hard work was done. September, October, November 2020. So they're the levels that stand out to me at the moment. Right, let's just have a look at a couple of things going down. Now these big rallies, funnily enough, the biggest rallies happen in the worst bear markets. This is obviously quite extraordinary, really strong couple of days, particularly given what's going on. To me, it does remind me a bit of, people kind of left the party. They left the room screaming, "Get out of here." Then a whole lot of new punters kind of saw an empty room and said, "Mate, this is the best party ever. We're all going to pile in, screaming to an empty room. Let's get the party started." So I'm still quite skeptical. I'm still short the S&P on this one. Let's see where it's retraced through to. Look at that. Just wash out this little noise here. It's bang on a 38. That actually looks like a pretty good level for it to come to if it's going to rally. I think if it cracks that one, then I guess it probably is. Look, new highs are on the cards. To me, that's insanity, but you never know. But there are no end of little levels here of where the tables have turned. Where resistance, support, resistance. There's that one. There's this one through here. Ultimately became resistance. Ultimately, this one became resistance. This one right in here, which had support, ultimately became resistance. This one in here, there's a smaller one here, hasn't really been tested yet. I guess here though, this is like a key one, and you can see there's a few candles in there where it has been tested. And it has failed. You can see it's trading down here at the moment. I've spoken to here about the gapping risk of just trading the cash. So this is the gapping risk trading the futures. That's the weekend risk, right? So there is gapping risk in futures, but at least you only get it, one time over the week, as opposed to every single day. So you can see it's. Ever since this top, all these levels of support ended up becoming resistance. That support became resistance, That resistance there was broken through, but eventually it came back. A bit of resistance there. This one here, that support, it's turned into resistance. So it's still trending down. It's hit a Fibo. There's this channel here which is coming up against it. It still doesn't look good to me. When I look at some Fibo extensions, let's see where that goes to. I do know where that goes. It goes to around about 4,000, right? It's an interesting one in here. I just put that in the other day. It's like the 786 resistance. Let's just zoom out a little bit, or extension level. So let's just get rid of that one, make it a little bit clearer. So to me, it's still on track to get to this 4,000 level sooner rather than later. Let's just take out that noise there. I'll put it right on the ding, right on the dong. And there, So it's right on 4,000, which is in the guts of that gap there. I think that's for me still the target. I guess the reservations that I have is there is certainly this negative divergence going on there on a daily, right? That's a reservation. When I look at the Bollinger Bands, so the RSIs and the Bollinger Bands, they're the two things that I pay attention to out of like all the technical indicators. You can see here this leg down here was way outside the Bollinger, right? So, you know, to me, I guess if I just traded with my head, right, I'd say, right, it was a buy down here, right, because it did the I remember looking at it going, mate, it's right outside the Bollingers, and there was this divergence starting to happen on a daily basis, right? But I didn't want to stay short just because of the disaster there, and also I think that this is a longer term correction. So the technicals aren't in sync with my market view, which is concerning, but it's not going to stop me. Right, let's just go out to like the weekly. Now you can see the counter to that is on a longer time frame, and I'm looking at a longer time frame, right? The weekly is nowhere near oversold yet, right? It's at that bottom of the Bollinger, right? But it is, I mean, that's a total like rollover. And on the monthly, yeah, look how far it's got to go on the monthly, right? And just the more you zoom out, the further you look out, the further it's got to fall. And I find that interesting. It's like and markets don't always do that. It's like when you look at the trend at the moment, every time you look at the longer the time frame, the worse the market looks. And markets don't always look like that, right? In terms of the way it's trending, right? Here, you know, it was trending solidly, but as you zoomed out, it wasn't. You know, it was conflicting on the time frames, whereas I think now it's at the stage where the longer your time frame you look at, just increasingly, it's just increasingly looks worse and worse. Anyway, look, that's pretty much it for me. As I said, you know, this is, you know, it's a crazy time, but, you know, really, if you're in the markets, as I've been, you know, in a professional sense since, you know, 1989, and certainly keeping track of when I was at school. Well, actually 87 I was out of school, right? 87 is basically the earliest that I go back. You know, these things, I've got like, there's probably 20 or 30 of them, right, that for me are formative events in the market, right? So if you're listening to people and you're saying, oh wow, this is amazing, I've never seen anything like this, you're listening to someone that hasn't been around anywhere near long enough to teach you anything worth knowing. So that's my 2 cents. Interesting times. We'll see how we go. Okay, ciao.